Recently, a friend of mine at work passed away. Um, he was a good friend. He and I had great times together. Um, but it got me thinking. Recently, I've lost quite a few of my friends. And maybe I'm just getting at that age where it seems to happen all the time. Someone on my Facebook feed actually said exactly that perhaps you're at the age where everybody starts passing away. Now, that doesn't make me feel any better. So I started thinking to myself, how many friends have I actually had and how close were they? Well, I mean, you usually have quite a few friends as you go through life. But I started thinking that there were very few of them that were very, very close friends. And I started thinking back to like my first friend. My first friend was Roland. He and I met when we were, I think, 2 or 3 years old. Might have been a little later than that, but that's just kind of where my memory takes me. And like most guy friends, we met by having a fight with each other. And I don't remember what it was over. It's probably something totally not significant. But anyway, both of us went crying back to our parents, and um, our parents decided that this was a good opportunity to bring the two of us together and to turn us into friends rather than enemies. And it worked really well. So for many, many years, Roland and I were like really close friends. I had bought a Schwinn Varsity, which was like the bike to have at that time. It was a 10 speed. Now I know they make all sorts of ridiculous speed bikes, but this was a cruiser. Took a little work to get that thing pedaling up, but it was a great bike. And shortly after, Roland's parents bought him a bike, the same one. So we both had twin varsities. And so we just started riding them pretty much everywhere. And there was this, we lived in Santa Monica, California, and there was this really long stretch of beach with a bike trail on it. And so every weekend, he and I would get on our Schwinn Varsities and ride down this endless road of a bike trail. And it went off into the city, it went back into like some really abandoned kinds of areas of the beach city. And it was a lot of fun to ride. And every weekend, he and I would ride 26 miles up and 26 miles back. And so the way we usually did it is we would get a Pepsi um, before we took off, and we'd carry it with us for a while until we found a trash can and threw away what was left of it. And then we would drive. We would ride our 26 miles all the way to Redondo Beach, and at Redondo Beach we would buy a Coke and then drive back. So that was basically our weekend every weekend, and we would do it twice, going there and going back. And so Saturday and Sunday. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. At one point, Roland switched grades and ended up switching schools, and so we started seeing less and less of each other. And then he moved way out into Los Angeles, some area out there, and we just stopped seeing each other. Although every now and then I would get on my bicycle and I would ride out to where he was living in Los Angeles, and he and I would just, spend some time together, talking about the old times. It was like when we were late in high school. And then years later, we just kind of separated and didn't see each other anymore. Because at one point I went to the academy, and I basically really never came back to Santa Monica or Los Angeles again. And so, anyway, um, he and I connected again years later, many years later, decades later. Um, we connected on Facebook, and I kind of thought, oh, this will bring us back together, and this will give us that time that we've been missing from each other, and it didn't really happen that way. What I've discovered with Facebook is it was really good to connect with people you used to know, but nothing ever really happens beyond that. Anyway, during this time when we separated, you know, during, I guess, junior high school or elementary school and junior high school, um, one of my best friends was a kid named Chris, and Chris and I got along really well. Um, we both had a proclivity for stuffed animals. I had a stuffed animal named Elmer. I'd show him to you, but I really don't want to go into the other room and drag him in over here. He's sleeping. He's old, and he had a little claw kind of a character, like a crab, whose name was Krabby Claus. My animal was Elmer, and so we would hang out between us and kind of like pretend that they were like hanging out with each other. So, kids do stupid things. But anyway, years later, he died. A disease that kind of took a lot of people back in the 1980s. And I do miss him. He was a really good friend. I had a friend at the time who was a pretty close friend named Brian. Brian was really, really into music. Still is, actually. We reconnected on Facebook, and although we're not hanging out, he also lives in Texas. And when I made that notice that, hey, we're both in Texas, didn't really go anywhere from that. I kind of thought we'd, hook up and, hang out for a while, but never happened. There was my friend Mark when we used to be at Santa Monica High School, Samo High. We were also in Lincoln Junior High School together. But he had a tendency to make movies. And so he'd get all of his friends together and they'd all be in his movies. I wrote a couple scripts for him and didn't really go anywhere. But after I left Santa Monica High School and ended up going to Moore Park because my mother had passed away at the time, I never really got to see him again. And to this day, I've never been able to reconnect with him on Facebook. He has a very common name, so I have not been able to even find out what he's been doing since then. He hasn't made any movies or any huge movies that I would have noticed, but just sad because the guy was a really good director of movies, and I kind of miss doing that sort of thing. When I was in Moore Park High School, I had a very close friend named Ken. He and I hung out all the time, and it was just a great friend to have. I went to West Point, and he went to the Air Force Academy, and he graduated from the Air Force Academy and recently retired as a colonel. Pretty proud of him, even though we don't communicate anymore. Tried to reopen communications, but nothing really ever happened. Since then, I've had a bunch of Army friends, friends while I was in the Army. I knew them by their nicknames. They knew me by my nickname, which at that time was Gumby. It has no real ties to the real Gumby. It was just the name that I had chosen at one point, and it just kind of stuck, and they knew me as that. Had a bunch of friends, and I'm on a Facebook connection thing with them, and so basically all I do is I find out when somebody passes away, and that's kind of a morbid sort of connection to those old friends, but it's basically all I got. And years later, after I got out of the Army, I had a friend named Jason. He started off as an editor of a newspaper that I was writing for, or that I was editing for. I was the opinion editor. That's what it was. Anyway, once I moved, this was in Michigan, and once I moved away from Michigan, he and I haven't really had a lot of connection. I visited Michigan at one point, and we hooked up and had lunch. So that was nice, but we generally don't see each other anymore. So all I have pretty much now are like colleagues that I work with, but none of them have ever really become friends. And that kind of like creates the question that I would like to ask to anybody that's actually listening to this is, do you have anything similar to this? Like, have you lost all of your friends that you had when you were a kid? Or do you have really strong friends now? Because I definitely don't have any strong friends today. I wish I did, but I don't. So I'm just curious how everybody else kind of takes this. Because I'd like to have a lot of friends, but for some reason making them when you hit a certain age seems to be really difficult. And so anyway, if you got any comments or pieces of knowledge that might actually help, please leave a comment. And I would really appreciate it if you left a comment, and if you would put a like on this if you did like it. And it's just a lot of history. Yeah, I wasn't really sure where I was going to go with this, so I just kind of did it. And I have a feeling I'm going to be doing a lot of these kinds of things because I've got many, many years of background that I like to share with people while I still have time. I was thinking the other day that like my grandfather had so many great stories. Maybe one of these days I'll actually cover one of his, because his stories were just so brilliant, but I don't think anybody was listening to him. I listened to him, but I wasn't smart enough to like write all of them down when he told me. And I wish I had, because I think the same thing's going to happen to me, as I will finally, leave this mortal coil, and nobody will know any of the things that I've actually done. And I hope that's not the way it works out.